His voice is weak, but it's quite understandable after all the respiratory therapy he's undergone with Pope Francis now blessing the crowd. He just made the sign of the cross. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praise be Jesus Christ. Greetings and a very warm welcome to all of you joining us for this morning live broadcast, coming to you from the Agostino Gemelli Hospital in Rome, where Pope Francis will be released from hospital later today. The Pope wants to greet everyone present there, gathered in the area in front of the hospital, the main pedestrian entrance to the hospital, and to give his blessing. It's understandably a long-awaited moment after just over 5 weeks of the Pope's hospitalization, where he's been recovering from bilateral pneumonia and respiratory issues, and has finally reached the point where he can go back to the Vatican to convalesce there. But before doing so today, he wants to greet all those present and certainly thank everyone for their prayers over these few weeks for his good health and recovery. Dennis Jones here to provide some translation and information here for you on this Vatican Media broadcast, and a warm welcome to you all. You can see the crowds, at least our television viewers can see the crowds are gathered in front of the hospital where many have been gathering all during these past few weeks. leaving flowers and get well cards and posters there for Pope Francis. It's been a place where prayers have been said throughout these 5 weeks, as well as in St. Peter's Square, where, by the way, there's a live broadcast of this greeting and blessing of Pope Francis on the big screens there in St. Peter's Square. You're seeing here the building of the Gemelli Hospital complex, a very large complex in the northern part of the city of Rome. And Pope Francis will be appearing from the 5th floor, which technically is actually lower when you look at it, because the main entrance to the hospital there starts at the 4th floor. So he will be one floor above that floor in order to be closer to the people below. Otherwise, he's been cared for in the 10th floor there at the top of the hospital, and so he wished to come down to be closer to the people so they can see him. Of course, traditionally, Pope Francis gives his Sunday blessing there in St. Peter's Square. And of course, for the past 5 weeks with his time in hospital, that's not been possible. But before leading usually the Angelus on a Sunday, the Pope would offer his reflections, a message on the gospel of the day. And he's continued that while in hospital. The written message has been distributed by the Holy See Press Office for those to continue reflecting on the day's gospel, and with Pope Francis reaching out in that way with his own particular message. And we're seeing some people gathered on the balconies of the hospital there, the main facade that you would see when you're entering, where the public enters there in that complex, where there have also been journalists throughout this time that are gathered to hear the latest from the doctors and updates on the Pope's health, which has improved to the point that he's ready to go back home to the Vatican there and to convalesce. The Pope also has a message, his reflections for this Sunday, which will be coming out at 12 o'clock. The Holy See Press Office will issue that message, as it has customarily these past few weeks. And at the same time, there's great expectation here as you see people there with flowers and gathered to see the Pope after this long time, where the only appearance there's been is just a photograph that was released by the Holy See Press Office there of Pope Francis when he was in the chapel that's set up there, located on the 10th floor, where he was in prayer. And there have not been many images as well for the privacy of the Pope during this time of convalescence and serious illness to recover. At the same time, his voice was heard, actually, about 3 weeks ago, when he sent a very brief greeting and message of thank you that was played out on St. Peter's Square during the recitation of the Rosary. A Rosary's been led there in St. Peter's Square and in the Paul VI Hall inside the Vatican practically every evening since the Pope's convalescence, to pray for his good health and recovery. And the crowd's there cheering Francis as they await his appearance. And it's 12 o'clock, and the Pope's Sunday reflection has just been released, and in this reflection, Pope Francis writes, "Dear brothers and sisters, a happy Sunday to you." The parable in today's Gospel tells us about the patience of God, who urges us to make our life a time of conversion. Jesus uses the image of a barren fig tree, which has not borne the anticipated fruit, and which nevertheless the farmer does not want to cut down. He wants to fertilize it again, since it may bear fruit in the future. The Pope writes, and this patient farmer is the Lord, who works the soil of our lives with care and waits confidently for our return to him. And for our radio listeners, that applause is Pope Francis, who's waving. He's in a wheelchair at the balcony there, waving to the crowds below in his first public appearance since February 14th, apart from the photograph that was issued a week ago. And Pope Francis is greeting the crowds, waving to them and smiling. Now the microphone is being brought to him. I see a lady there with white or yellow flowers. Very nice. Pope Francis greeting a lady in particular who has these bright yellow flowers there with a tribute to him. Francis waving to the crowds, giving a thumbs up as well, and a smile. His voice is weak, but that's quite understandable after all the respiratory therapy he's undergone with Pope Francis now blessing the crowd. He just made the sign of the cross. But the difficulty in speaking is understandable with all the respiratory therapy he's undergone, the double pneumonia, and the bronchitis issues he's been dealing with in recovering from, with some quite serious moments in that recovery as well. The doctors yesterday, in following his care at the hospital, explained the care over the past 5 weeks and how this will require time for him to get his voice back after receiving the high-flow oxygen and also some mechanical respiratory assistance during the night to sleep. His prognosis and all has improved immensely, and hence he's going to be going home later today. But in recovering the voice and energy, that will take at least a couple months of convalescence. That's what the doctor said yesterday, and a limited meeting of people and crowds to recover. Now, continuing on what Pope Francis had to say in his Angelus here, in his Sunday address, that is, the Pope continues in his written message: in this long period of my hospitalization, I've had the opportunity to experience the Lord's patience, which I also see reflected in the tireless care of the doctors and healthcare workers, as well as in the care and hopes of the relatives of the sick. This trusting patience, anchored in God's unfailing love, is indeed necessary in our lives, especially when facing the most difficult and painful situations. And continuing in his message for this Sunday, just released, just coming out from the press office, and almost at the same time as Pope Francis appeared there briefly to greet the crowds below and wave to them and give his blessing. The Pope writes, I'm saddened by the resumption of heavy Israeli bombing on the Gaza Strip, causing many deaths and injuries, and I call for an immediate halt to the weapons and for the courage to resume dialogue so that all hostages may be released and a final ceasefire reached. In the Gaza Strip, the humanitarian situation is again very serious, the Pope writes, and requires urgent commitment from the conflicting parties and the international community. The Pope continues, on the other hand, I'm pleased that Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed on the final text of the peace agreement. I hope that it may be signed as soon as possible and may thus contribute to establishing lasting peace in the South Caucasus. The Pope concludes, you are continuing to pray for me with great patience and perseverance. Thank you very much. I pray for you too. And together let's pray for an end to wars and for peace, especially in tormented Ukraine, Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, Myanmar, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. May the Virgin Mary keep you and continue to accompany us on our journey towards Easter. Francis writing in his Sunday reflection and message just published and issued by the Holy See Press Office. You can see here the crowds are gathered there in front of the Gemelli Hospital, the main entrance, pedestrian entrance there, where Pope Francis appeared for just a couple minutes there to wave and smile, and he and he gave a brief greeting there to a lady there who had a beautiful bouquet of yellow flowers that really kind of stood out there, especially when the sun was shining there a moment ago on this partly cloudy day here in the city. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this live broadcast and this celebration of Pope Francis' improved health and the fact that he will be returning to the Vatican today. After just over 5 weeks of convalescence, when it all started on February 14th when his bronchitis became quite serious and he was taken to the hospital for the care that he needed. I'd like to also thank, before we sign off here, our partner broadcasters. They include EWTN Television, their channel in English, Catholic Faith Network in America, Shalom World Television, Ahmad Dashan Television, Catholic Television, and our radio stations, Radio Maria Papua New Guinea, Luminous Radio India, and Radio Maria England, as well as all the television broadcasters, radio broadcasters who are rebroadcasting this live event, and or all of you watching it on demand later on. This will all be available on Facebook as well as on our YouTube channel there, and full updates and lots of video coverage and interviews will be on VaticanNews.va and our social media profiles there. That's Joan signing off here and thanking you all for being with us here, and thanks to Adriano Vitali, our technical help there, and Massimiliano Menichetti for producing this broadcast. Laudetur Jesus Christus, praised be Jesus Christ.